Hi, it's Bill. I practice divorce law at the Gentry Law Firm in Marietta, Cobb County, Georgia. This is another in our series of webinars about divorce law and how different aspects of our lives are changing because of the coronavirus and social distancing. We expect today's program to run about 15 minutes. Afterwards, we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel, Gentry Law Firm LLC. At the end of the presentation, we'll take some questions that you can post in the chat box. Today, we're going to get the judicial perspective on how the virus is impacting our court system. From the Chief Judge of Cobb Superior Court, the Honorable Reuben Green. Welcome, Judge Green.
Thank you, Bill. It's good to be with you.
Judge, before we get into a lot of detail about the court system and the coronavirus, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? Tell us who Judge Reuben Green is.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, most of the folks probably watching are connected with the law somehow. So, my legal background is sort of, I graduated from Emory Law School. I grew up mostly in Georgia, but I bounced around a lot as a kid. My parents were split up, and so I was kind of half in Oregon and half in Georgia as I was growing up. But came back to Emory Law School and then went to King and Spalding, worked with them for a few years doing general civil litigation. Then I became a prosecutor, both a state prosecutor here in Cobb County and then a federal prosecutor in the Northern District of Georgia. I've been a Superior Court judge for the last 10 years. During that time, I started Veterans Court in 2014, which is an accountability and treatment court for veterans that have served our country and have issues from that service. Then also in 2018, I was unanimously elected as the Chief Superior Court Judge here in the Cobb Judicial Circuit by the other Superior Court judges, and I've served for the last 2 years in that role as the Chief Judge.
Well, Judge, before we get to the Chief Judge role, tell us what a Superior Court Judge does. I realize most of our listeners probably have some familiarity with it, but some may not.
Yeah, so the Superior Court is a general jurisdiction trial court, and we hear all types of cases. We hear criminal cases. We hear civil cases where they're arguing over money or property, or it could be a business dispute. We hear family law cases. It could be a divorce case or an adoption, child custody disputes, all different types of cases. Recently, obviously around the election time, we've heard election disputes, but it's a general jurisdiction trial court. Probably about 95% of the matters that appear before a judge like me are decided by a judge like me as opposed to a jury. We sometimes think of jury trials when we think about trials, but the vast majority of cases are decided by judges. There's 10 Superior Court judges in the Cobb Judicial Circuit, and each year we get about 20,000 new cases, so it's one of the busiest judicial circuits in the state of Georgia, and we hear all types of cases. The two best things that I get to hear as a Superior Court judge, I always like to share these because you think about some of the sad things we hear more than you think about the good stuff, but certainly adoptions. I'm an adoptive parent myself, and to have the opportunity to perform adoptions is one of those great gifts that I get as a Superior Court judge. The other one is weddings. Every now and then someone will ask me to perform a wedding for them where I get to join two beautiful people into a happy marriage that hopefully lasts for the rest of their lives. So, two great things that we get to do in the Superior Court as well.
Well, I've handled many adoptions myself, and it is a heartwarming thing and a change from the typical fare that you and I both see day in, day out in court.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Judge, so you said you were unanimously elected Chief Judge. So what does the Chief Judge of the Superior Court of Cobb County do?
Well, up until a couple of months ago, I would tell you I handled all the administrative responsibilities for the Superior and Juvenile Court. So I supervise the employees. I make sure that, the courts are open, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that we have good calendars that are published so everybody has notice of what's going on, and, deal with hiring and firing and all those kinds of things. 2 months ago, our world changed, as we all know, with COVID. And since that time, I've really been focusing on keeping our courts open, making sure that we have judges that are here and available to hear emergency matters, whether that's a liberty interest, someone that's in custody that should have the opportunity to have a bond hearing to see whether they should be released from custody, or a resolution of the case that might cause them to be released from custody. Very important to hear those types of cases and not delay those types of cases. It could be an emergency involving a child, that custody dispute between two parents, and one of the parents has fled with a child or absconded or taken the prevented the other parent from having visitation with that child. It could be a case like that. Could be a temporary protective order where, there's domestic violence in the relationship. As we're all closed into our homes, we know that domestic violence has been going up, and it could be a domestic violence relationship, and we need to be able to protect the victim of that domestic violence, and so have a temporary protective order or temporary restraining order, something like that in effect. So we want to make sure that our courts are open for those types of things. And then gradually we've been increasing the types of cases that we're hearing right now. And so I've been trying to set up the guidelines as to how we can do that in a way that gives everybody the opportunity to be heard, protects everybody's constitutional rights, and make sure that we have open courtrooms that allow the public to either view electronically as we're doing now, or to be able to come to the court if they chose to do that. Of course, we are discouraging folks from coming to the courts. We don't want to have mass numbers of people in any kind of place right now, because obviously that spreads COVID. So we are limiting some things, but certainly we want to make sure our courts are open. So for the last 2 months, I've been focusing almost exclusively on what is our response to COVID and how do we keep our courts open going forward with COVID, and what types of steps can we take to kind of reopen our courts to a higher volume that we normally handle.
Well, so you talk about open courts, and there's a constitutional dimension to the fact that the court system in our country, both the federal and state constitutions, mandate that the court system be open for good reasons.
Yes, absolutely. And so, if we're going to do it electronically, either we have to be in our court. So what I've typically been doing when I'm conducting hearings electronically is I'm in the courtroom. The courtroom is unlocked. There's a deputy in the courtroom as always. There may be my court reporter, depending on whether the case is reported or taken down or not. But, so I'm in the courtroom. The courtroom's open. It's a typical open courtroom like we would normally have, only with all the participants, lawyers, witnesses, they're all appearing virtually as we're doing right now. The other option that we've learned is we can also stream it. So we could give notice to the public that we're going to conduct a hearing as we normally would, and then we could stream it on YouTube or one of the other channels, so that whatever we're hearing and seeing, like what we're doing right now, is being streamed on YouTube as we're doing it. So the public would have the right to listen just as they would if they were sitting in the courtroom.
Well, that's great. So Judge, to give the public kind of an overarching view, the Georgia Supreme Court regulates the practice of law, the court system, and so forth. And beginning on March 14th, I believe it was, the Georgia Supreme Court issued a Judicial Emergency declaration, which has been extended now. Can you tell the court, that the folks who are listening, a little bit about the court impact of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned a moment ago that we hear 20,000 cases each year that we receive new cases. That works out to, 800 cases or so a month that are being resolved typically. I would guess that we are probably resolving more in the range of 200 to 300 at most a month right now, which is dramatically less than we would be hearing under normal circumstances. And the way we're doing that is we're focusing on the liberty interest case that involves someone's freedom typically, or emergency type cases that could be, anything, the things I've mentioned before. Gradually, we're increasing that to do a little bit more. So on March 13th, the Chief Justice issued a statewide judicial emergency that's been extended 2 times. So now that will run till June 12th. I issued it prior to the Chief Justice issuing it. I issued as the Chief Judge of the Cobb Judicial Circuit, a judicial emergency order in Cobb. And then I issued another one yesterday that explains what we are doing in Cobb and how we're going to ramp up our services to get back to something closer to what we were doing before. Obviously not having jury trials. I don't anticipate jury trials, at least not until school's back in session. And then I don't anticipate us in the near future having the types of large calendars that we would have had before. We just can't bring that many people into the courthouse. We can't bring that many into the courtrooms. So whereas my courtroom would normally seat 80 in the gallery watching, now we're going to limit that to 10 in the gallery watching. So, that's the amount of space that we need in order to maintain social distancing. So we're trying to work through those things, and we're learning as we were going. The Chief Justice I think this week actually, established a COVID task force that involves all the different folks that are stakeholders in our justice system in the state of Georgia. I've been appointed to that task force, so I'll serve as the representative for the accountability courts and also as a representative of what it is to be a chief judge. So I, along with I don't know how many other folks, will be coming up with ideas to address jury trials, for example, going forward. How do we accommodate the volume of people that we need to in our courthouses to conduct a jury trial? So we'll be coming up with sort of guidelines and best practices going forward through that task force.
Well, and Judge, and obviously you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know when this thing is, we're going to get on the far side of this whole virus thing. But the question I get from my clients every day is, when is my case going to move forward? When am I going to have a final trial? When is this going to happen? And I know you talked about the process. Do you have any further insight that you can share with these folks?
Yeah, so the memorandum, I issued a judicial emergency order yesterday, and then it included an attached memorandum to it, and it sets forth, as it relates to general civil and domestic calendars, what we can do. The gist of it is, if it's an emergency, there's no question we're going to get you in. If it's not an emergency, we're going to start scheduling those cases anyways, and we're going to start bringing those cases in. So I would encourage the listeners, if whether you're a litigant or a lawyer, if you have cases that are ready to be heard, that you reach out to the assigned judge and see if you can get them scheduled. We're now scheduling those cases probably, certainly if it's electronic, we can do those immediately. If they're not electronic, we're going to probably start scheduling those as of June 1. And we will be running more courtrooms than we're running now, have the opportunity to have open courtrooms. So we don't want to deny someone access to the courthouse because they don't have this great technology. Obviously, everybody watching has some sort of technology and they would have the ability to do this, but there's a lot of folks that don't have a smartphone, don't have a computer at home, and you can't go to our public libraries right now to get access to those things. So those folks could be denied access if they didn't have the opportunity to come to the courthouse. So certainly the ones that are pro se, that are representing themselves, the ones that are indigent, we want to give those folks the opportunity to be heard as well. And then there will be some people that believe that in order to get a fair hearing for them, from their perspective, they want to be sitting next to the judge to testify and have the opportunity to be in court, because certainly credibility is an easier thing to judge when you're face to face as opposed to through a computer screen. So some folks will just want to have that hearing in court, and we're going to start scheduling those starting on June 1. But again, not having the big calendars, probably especially setting those cases so that we bring in one or two cases at a time and try to work through those one or two before we bring in the next one or two, as opposed to calling in 10 or 15 in the morning and trying to stagger them throughout the day. So I think that'll start happening. So I would encourage folks to reach out to the assigned judge if you have a case that's ready to be heard, so that we can start scheduling those cases and getting people in court.
Well, that's great. That's great news, Judge. Let me shift gears just a little bit. The Cobb County Bar Association has very recently lost a longtime member, Raj Maeda, which has really upset a lot of folks. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I don't have any inside information. It happened in a county, Henry County, not Cobb County, but as far as what I've read in the paper, and then I've seen some tributes to him from the magistrate court, from the chief judge of the magistrate court, Brendan Murphy, and from others that, have described his really life of public service. As a lawyer, he served as a staff attorney to a number of judges. Just off the top of my head, I was trying to think of all the judges that he served under, and I even texted our DA to see whether he had served under her, and I think he did. Oh, yes, he did. All right, so he served, just these are the ones off the top of my head: Judge Kell, Judge Staley Clark, Chief Magistrate Brendan Murphy, back when our current DA was the Chief Magistrate Joyette Holmes, under her, and I think he might have served under Frank Cox, I think. So that's 5 different judges over the last, 10 to 15 years that he's been serving up here, and he was the type of person that would always give a helping hand. He was always there to help people through challenging times. I saw Judge Childs mention that he was the first person that reached out to her when she was elected to be a Superior Court judge to say, hey, if you need anything, if I can help with anything, let me know. Brendan Murphy described, Chief Magistrate Judge described his basically life of public service when he sent out the message informing everybody of what had happened. And You just described a true public servant. And then, depending on the reports that you read in the newspapers, it sounds like, once again, he was serving and trying to help another person in a very, crazy situation, it sounds like. So, trying to save someone else, sacrificing his own life to do it. So very sad for our courthouse. And I think his loss will be greatly missed for a very long time.
Well, it just seems like a spirit of self-sacrifice and selflessness, which we as lawyers aspire to attain.
Yeah, I mean, that's why most of us went to law school. We thought about Atticus Finch, and we thought about To Kill a Mockingbird and how we wanted to serve our community and make a difference. That's why most of us went to law school. And so, and then I think in our careers, sometimes we lose sight because we focus on the business aspects of practicing law as well. But, each and every day, lawyers go to court and represent clients and help them through the most difficult day of their life. Whether it's in the domestic context like this, or a criminal context, or civil, you're about to lose your business, you're arguing over contract, and those are life-changing moments in people's lives, and lawyers are the ones that are there to help them through that. And we as lawyers really need to focus on that and take pride in that, because it really is helping someone in a challenging time. When I swear in new lawyers, it's I always talk about you're a counselor as part of the oath, that you are a counselor as a lawyer, an attorney and counselor. And really, we are counseling people through challenging times. So we need to not lose sight of that. So you lawyers watching, thank you for the public service you do each and every day, for sure.
Well, Judge Green, do you have any closing comments for our listeners as we wrap things up?
I just want to comment about the staff in the courthouse, and I think the lawyers that are out there in our community continuing to operate. Our courthouse has remained open during this incredibly challenging time because of the staff and the hard work that they've done to keep it open, whether they are working from their homes virtually or they're coming to the courthouse to do all the things that have to be done in the courthouse. They are really making a difference each and every day to keep our courthouse open. So I am grateful to all the staff, all the people that make our courthouse run, and keep us all safe as we're in the courthouse and coming to the courthouse. And I look forward to seeing many of them that have been appearing virtually, things like this that we're doing now, as opposed to in the courthouse, and look forward to the days when we reopen up the full courthouse again and can help people through these difficult times. So thank you to all the staff to keep us running.
Well, Judge Green, thank you very much for being with us today and sharing your thoughts and really illuminating where we're going with this whole COVID thing and its impact on the courts.
Thank you, Bill. I've enjoyed being with you today.
And for our listeners, you can reach us at the Gentry Law Firm by calling at 770-425-5573. Please like and follow our firm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and please share this video with anyone who may need it. With that, Judge, we'll sign off at this time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.